A lot of the furniture I make for myself or the shop around here is made from 2x12s. And I know a lot of people frown upon it because they look down on southern yellow pine because of the very coarse nature of the late growth and early growth. There's a lot of contrast there. But I personally like the fact that southern yellow pine forces me to take into the grain consideration a lot more. It really have to focus on where an individual part comes from the tree, not only to make it the joinery successful, but to make it somewhat aesthetically pleasing. So today, let's talk about where parts for a table, like my little side table, come from within a tree. Now, unfortunately with pine, which they're more concerned about getting the maximum yield out of a tree than getting quality boards, they just basically come along and they will saw it in these planks. And y'all have all seen these at the big box store that you get. Just like that, okay? Fairly simple. So what you have right here is a good cross section of the different types of cuts. For example, if I take this board right down here, that is going to be what they call a flat sawn board. The grains are going along both sides, but the grain pattern on the front is going to have all these nice cathedrals on them and stuff like that. The downside to this style is this is the board that's probably going to warp the most, because as boards tend to dry, they want to straighten their grains out. So this board, you're going to get a lot of cupping involved. Then you have what they call quarter sawn boards, and that's more like boards that are right around the pith area, straight across. You're to take that board right there, remove the pith, and now all of a sudden these blanks right here are what they call perfectly quarter sawn. This type of board gives you those nice straight lines that go across. And in pine, if you're looking for something to blend out, well, having nice horizontal lines, once you step back 5 or 10 feet, the colors kind of blend, especially if you have poor eyesight. So it kind of looks homogeneous. It looks consistent. Whereas if you're having these giant cathedrals, oh wow, that really pops out. So if you're wanting a more subtle look, obviously you would go for quarter sawn. But also look at the grain. The grain is very short in here. So as it straightens out, yes, this board might shrink a little bit this way as the moisture leaves, but it's not going to cup or warp as much. So those boards are going to be the most consistent. Then you have something what they call bastard grain. And that would be like if I took my leg right here out of the board, okay? Notice the grain is going from corner to corner, not all the way across. Now I want you to think about the grain that's going to show up. It's going to be straight lines going down on all 4 sides. You're not going to have those cathedrals on any one of the sides. Now this has a couple of advantages. It looks consistent, so as people walk around a table or see it from different angles, if you have one side that's got the cathedrals, like this board right here would have, or even this board right here, these 2 sides right here are going to have cathedrals. This side's going to have straight lines. It's quite obvious and it's somewhat jarring. It's not very good looking. Another thing, this right here makes a better leg blank, especially if the wood is still drying. Because remember me telling you that the grains tend to want to straighten out? Well, if these grains are straightening out, all of a sudden you have more of a, I'm going to try and draw this right, a diamond look. Okay? Now, if you had attached a this would be more like that, where these two got pushed in like that. Well, if you attach the tenon right here between the tables, this outside point right here will always stay in contact. So you'll get a nice tight fit. If you had it just this way, you had it rotated, all of a sudden you would be getting the gaps on the outside and it wouldn't be a tight fit. And it would also be a little bit shaky as it sits. So, you always, on your legs of a table, we're looking for parts of a table, you generally want to have the bastard grain. So we're back at my 2x12 side table in my bedroom. And just as I explained earlier, you notice that I used rift sawn or bastard sawn grain on all 4 legs. That way the grain runs as straight down as it possibly can. Now, let's look at the sides. I am not a big fan of flashy woods. Those big, feathered boards or giant crotch, giant cathedrals you see so much. I just think it detracts. And those cathedrals, they impart a direction to the wood. A lot of times you can't control that one. And I think that's one of the reasons why red oak has such a bad reputation in furniture. Because they've used it so much in these big box construction industries. They process it just like I showed you that pine, where they're just flat sawing to get the maximum yield. So when they run these giant boards through machineries, there's nothing about the machinery that is reading the grain. So what pops out could be quarter sawn, it could be rift sawn, bastard sawn, or flat sawn. Some of them could have cathedrals, some of them not. And then they just assemble those into cabinets. Have you ever walked into somebody's kitchen? You might have one rail on the side with cathedrals, 1 quarter sawn, and it just doesn't look right because there wasn't a human eye to consider the grain. Well, with pine, a lot of that long cathedrals come out really prominent. I mean, it's just jarring. So if you take a quarter sawn board, which if you notice this front door front is completely quarter sawn. It curves down and it flattens at 90 degrees right at the face of this door. Not only does that give me the thinnest grains, but it gets them perfectly straight all the way around. I did the same for the sides. That way from a distance it kind of blends together. There's nothing that draws your eye to it, and you appreciate the form more than just the board. And if you do it right, you can even match the grains going all the way around. And that's something that subconsciously you might notice, and it looks uniform. So even consider board placement from the tree within your piece to get the look you want. Now here's another problem you have. The tabletop. Notice I have straight quarter sawn on top, which leaves me on the front flat sawn, and you can see the waviness of it. That's a bit of a distraction. Once somebody points that out to you, you go, oh yeah, I noticed that. What I probably should have done is this board right here, I probably should have done slightly rift sawn or bastard grain to get the straight lines over here, but it's a compromise. That would have made that one board move a little bit different than all the others, and I put a preference more on stability and function on this one piece with the idea that I was going to be tapering it down so it wouldn't be that noticeable. Compromise. But you can do those kinds of things if you understand where the board comes from the tree. So for today's bonus, I want to talk about ISHITANI furniture. But before we do that one, if you've liked this video so far, please consider subscribing. That kind of stuff really does help. And if you like this series or any of my longer form videos, which I'm more known for, please visit wortheffort.com. There's lots of ways you can patronize us, and your patronage really does help me fund making more of these videos. Anyways, back to ISHITANI. But he has a really quiet YouTube channel, and I say that because his filmography, his film style, which I believe his wife does everything, all he is a woodworker, it gets rid of all fluff and really focuses in on the techniques he's using, which is a combination of traditional Japanese hand skills, European hand skills, and modern day power tools. And let me tell you, he has some really cool power tools. His tenon cutting machine, even though he does it very successfully, very efficiently, very safely, it scares the hell out of me. I mean, just check it out. You'll understand what I mean when you see it. But he's producing some of the highest quality and best designed high-end furniture I've seen in a long time on a YouTube channel. You really ought to check him out. His videos are 10 to 15 minutes, no music, no fluff, just woodworking. And it is really worth it. I'll put a link to some of my favorites down below.